Welcome back to Webmasters FM. Today I have my first, I think, repeat guest, Matt Medeiros, the podfather of WordPress, which he does not like me calling him that. Welcome, Matt.
Brian, it's great to be back on your show. Honored to have the title of first repeat offender.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty low bar. I've only had a handful of people. I kind of forget that I have this podcast, and then a month goes by, and I think, man, I really want to talk to somebody. But there's been a lot of interesting things to talk about, and I think you're the person to talk about them.
I'm delighted to be here and have those conversations.
For context, we're recording Wednesday afternoon, and you just released a video. Was that this afternoon, or was that yesterday?
That was yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah, that was yesterday, where I did a video on. It's the first time I've ever done a video where I read a blog post in like a sort of reaction video style of Kevin Geary's blog post, which we'll go into. But coincidentally, I also did another video, which was like 48 hours before that, about what I want in a WordPress theme, which kind of jive pretty well with like some of the concerns that Kevin had, and like I broke down in the video. Yeah,
I'm kind of curious to hear. So I sort of glanced over the article when it came out. I guess for context, I mean, I consider Kevin like a friend, but I also him and I will definitely butt heads on like approaches to things, or we'll have philosophical differences. But he's a person I kind of always appreciate talking to because I feel like I'll get something out of it. I feel like he pushes, ideas forward, and I think that's helpful. But I was just super busy. This week was just like one of those weeks, and I didn't have time to like fully read his article. Like I kind of glanced it and stuff. So then I watched your video, which was actually perfect because you read it, and then it was kind of like a Primeagen video or something where they live streamers who love to like read blogs and react to it. I don't know. It worked really well, so I'm recommending it to people, especially if you don't like to read and you just want to have somebody read it to you, but also give it a little flavor. What was your takeaway from his post?
And for some background, by the way, dear listener, Brian also held my feet to the fire in the WP Minute Slack channel and said, 37 minutes? And also complained about ads. And I said, pony up for the YouTube Premium, and it wouldn't be that bad. I agree with you, and I think Kevin would agree with you about sort of how he approaches a lot of these topics. As I say in my video, and as I've said to him, and I've said countless times, like Kevin should be defending CSS at the internet layer of technology. And I think he's found himself in the WordPress ecosystem and is shouting at everyone saying it should be done this way, but nobody asked for it that way. But it's perfectly fine from a product perspective. This is how WordPress has actually thrived for the last 20 odd years. Here's this core of WordPress. Here's this application of WordPress. Here's how it's defined. And then, hey, it doesn't do exactly what I want, so a product team comes in and builds on top of that. Whether that's a new theme, a tiny little plugin, or a gigantic ecosystem like an Elementor that comes in layers on top of WordPress. And Kevin's doing that with, or will be doing that with Etch when it's fully released. I have a lot of agreements in his blog post, but the biggest thing that I disagree with is Kevin's perceived ownership of Etch being the thing that solves all of WordPress, because it doesn't. Number one, because it's a paid product that has to be purchased to solve that pain point. And again, nothing wrong with that. But he is shining the light through some of the holes in WordPress, of course. And again, I'm not a developer. He's very developer focused. But he's shining the light through those holes to say WordPress needs to catch up to operate like this. I can't even say if WordPress should operate like he's defining or should be built like he's defining. But certainly, like, we want WordPress to keep innovating. And he's innovating for sure, but it doesn't solve WordPress for the greater user base. And then I would also finish on saying, like, he and a lot of the folks that like love what he's building just see WordPress as a tool for professionals who are developers, agency owners, and their main goal with WordPress is to build sites for clients. And that's what that's how they perceive WordPress, but WordPress is not that. unless I'm totally missing the point, which could be valid. But WordPress is for the person who doesn't know anything technical, who just wants to put words onto the internet. Now, you can argue that that is still difficult for that beginner person, but that is, to me, the essence of WordPress. I want to put words onto the internet. Might be a blog, might be a small business website, but that's its intent. Its intent was never to build an agency tool for professional web developers. But I can also understand how that gets muddied as time marches on. That's my long sort of definition of what happened with that blog post.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, there's so many different routes to go. I think there's like the open source versus selling proprietary software, and the way people tend to treat WordPress like it's something they paid for, and they can get a little demanding on what they think it should or shouldn't do. I think that's one avenue. I think the other avenue is like, who is WordPress for? That classic conversation. And I think that's the part where I tripped up the most in the post, where the thing is, with Kevin, I probably agree with 80% of what he wrote. And I think there are things that many of us in the block theme world have been talking about for a long time. There's, we wanted a consistent design token system underneath that applied to all themes, and all themes had to use the same, and things were more transferable. Like, we wanted a lot of these things. A lot of the pain points he says are the same. But I think the thing that I trip up on is let's just take the example of when I change my theme in WordPress, I lose access to a lot of the stuff. And it's this idea that someone's going to go in and change the theme to their site to get a different style. Now, the person who's going to do that is not the same person who's going to buy Etch and write code to build a custom theme for a client. Like, I think those are two separate people. So I think the entire problem statement of everything's locked into your theme and you can't change themes, and it's, everything's sort of bundled and people get trapped, is a completely different audience. And I don't think handing that person Etch is going to solve their pain point at all, because I don't think they're the same person. So I think I struggle, like, who are we talking to? Who are these problems for, even to begin with?
Yeah, I mean, I think he even comments, I believe, on my video and says exactly that. Like, Etch is for the developer who's going to, build this out and then give the customer their website, and the customer never has to think about it. Well, that's fine if it's a commercial situation. Like, you're selling a site to somebody and they've built it, but they'll still need Etch. The biggest issue is, as he's rightfully highlighted, is how do we get WordPress at its core to operate in a sane way that makes onboarding people to put their words or their website on the internet in a quick and easy fashion. I said, as just like a power user of WordPress and somebody who also sold themes and plugins many, many, many years ago, like, yeah, I want to be able to build my site. And I think you and I talked about this, 2024 theme, 2023 theme. I forget like when this happened, but it was like, oh, if I build this out, I should be able to just switch themes and have those blocks there, but they're not. They just disappear. And that is, as a power user, of somebody who just wants to get stuff done with WordPress, like, yeah, that's the kind of ease of use I'm also looking for. I'm not looking to debate like the code that's used to do that, or the JavaScript, or should it be CSS, should it be HTML? Like, no, man, I just want that to transition over, and I can I can break down like my thoughts on like what I expect from a theme. But yeah, like, as a power user, I agree with a lot of that easy use stuff that he's arguing as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a debate that, at least on the developer side, has been around for years and years, which is how much do you bundle into the theme and how much do you separate into plugins? Like, themes for design, plugins are for functionality, and you shouldn't combine the two. And I think one example he had was, well, what if you have a portfolio post type or something, right? You put that in the theme, and it causes all this problem. And like, yes and no, because we would do that kind of stuff. Okay, well, let's make a separate plugin just for their portfolio stuff. And it's like, well, I still got to design it. I still got to make sure it matches with the theme, and I still got to have patterns for it. So then I'm just kind of doing things in two places. And I think this separation of concerns that is a really big issue for a lot of people. I think it's like an ideal thing that we all talk about. Like my content and my design should be completely separate and I should be able to swap this and do this. And it's just, I don't think the real world ever functions that way. I don't think that's ever been, I don't think there's any tool that does that. I don't think there's any system that's really solved that. And I think it's becomes this sort of this crutch. You know, on the flip side, I do think the block editor was supposed to promise that a little bit more. You know, I put in my Gravity Forms block and I put in my WooCommerce blocks and I can change my theme and the blocks are there and they work with everything, and it hasn't lived up to that yet. But I think comparing it to where we've been, it's such a huge improvement that I think people underestimate it. And I think that whether the code is in the theme or in the plugin, whether I can't change themes or I can, but I can't turn off your page builder either way, it's kind of like, to me, that's all the same thing. The fact that you could in your site go into your 2024 theme with all your content there, they have like 10 style variations that you could switch, right? That would do exactly what you want, restyle everything, but keep all the structure the same. You can change every single one of those in your block theme if you wanted to. Like, I think the functions are there, but if we want to argue about, well, that shouldn't have been here, that should have been there, I think like, yeah, that's fine. But like, you know, fundamental sins of Gutenberg, I think is a little extreme.
Yeah. I mean, I think, as I mentioned in the video, I mean, I look at that and I think if we were sitting at a WordCamp at an after party, sitting at the bar with Kevin, and we said, yeah, you think 20 years, that was all done intentionally, he would kind of smirk a little bit and like, you know, tell us like, yeah, I'm kind of embellishing that, you know, whatever. Like, I get it. We all, well, I don't want to say we all do it, but we all do it when in like the marketing and promotional world. Like, it wasn't, I don't think it was done intentionally. Open source is messy. I've always like related it to local government. A pothole hasn't got fixed for 6 months. What's going on? Why is it fixed? The road collapsed finally. Okay, I guess we'll finally go out and fix it. I feel like that's a lot of open source. But let me ask you this question. In terms of like that, what I'll call I'll call it data portability, but it's probably not the right word. Do you think it's as easy? What if WordPress had custom post types, custom fields by default, and a really usable query block to build out those pages? Is that the 80% to be done, is to have like an interface for people to duplicate what they already do with posts, because posts and pages travel no matter which theme you switch to. They're always going to continue with you. If the basic user could just say, I want a portfolio custom post type, and they could just like copy paste the posts item in a very, very easy fashion. Is that what we need to get done? And coupled with a query block that like could like build it out on the front end, do you think that's like the 80% we need in core WordPress for most people to have data portability?
What's really hard about these conversations is every week I sit down and think, I'm going to write a top 3 priorities in WordPress post. And it just depends on what I've been doing the last 2 weeks to what I think are the things that would be the most impactful. Obviously, I would say that getting custom post types and custom fields into core would have been a huge game changer, and maybe not 80%, but close to that 80% mark. That's why I worked on that project with WordPress.com to offer a way to do that, because I really believed in it and I really think it's that important. You know, that is a thing that I truly believe in. Custom fields, custom post types, content modeling, get all that in core. Yes, that'll change the thing. The other piece too is that the other side of that is I think the design system stuff needs to move to core. So I think I said earlier, like if you have 2024 theme and that comes with like, I think a dozen style variations, you can change style variations without breaking your theme. It changes the colors, the fonts, the spacing. I think anything beyond that, you're not going to be able to change it, right? I can't say like, change all my, 3 columns to be 4 columns and add extra content. Like layout changes, they're never going to be easy. They're always going to be manual, and no one's ever going to solve that. I think that's, people bring that up and it's a red herring. But yeah, so the content modeling stuff in core, and then also a lot of that stuff that's inside themes, I do agree should be in core. Your design system, all that sort of stuff should be hard set in core, and people would be mad, but I think it would make it a lot easier. And then you could switch themes, and because I guess the example in the blog post that I disagree with the most was this idea that if you like Brian Gardner's powder theme and you like Mike McAllister's Ollie theme and you have a pattern in one theme, you can't bring that pattern over to the other theme. But that's just not true. You can. You just won't get the same fonts and spacing and all of that sort of stuff. But I don't think that's a huge issue. You can take anything in any block editor theme and copy it, and all of the blocks are going to come over. You're just not going to get quite the same style stuff. And I know that for Kevin, style is the most important thing, the CSS and all that stuff. So that's why if we all just use the same CSS names and stuff, it would make it a lot easier, sure. But like, not a high priority to me. I would probably agree with you that the custom content stuff, I think, is like the last missing piece in core.
Yeah, and I just bring it up because I think when I read a Kevin Geary piece and even like try to follow, other folks who are building themes and all this other functionality, it's just like I have to take a step back again as just like a non-developer, power user, businessy kind of person and just be like, well, how far off are we? Like once the dust settles on both sides and both, everyone with their particulars and their debate, like how far off are we? Now, I know the challenge is how do we execute on it, but at the end of the day, like I'm always just trying to find like what's the least amount of effort we need to do to make the biggest impact. And I know it's not that easy in open source or specifically for WordPress, but I try to look at it in that fashion, like well, we're not that far off. So is it a good thing that WordPress, like do we just sit back and like, okay, Kevin has a solution, but it's a solution for his users and that avatar. And do we just not solve it and have people come up with these unique solutions that solve it for their particular avatar? I mean, I can sit here and debate that all day long, but I just think that we're never like that far away. At least it doesn't seem like that far away, to me. In the video that I put together about like what I want out of a theme, because this got a little bit, I got some feedback on that as people are still like, well, you're asking for it in like the entire functionality of a theme, like all this functionality. In my world at the WP Minute, like I run what I would consider a proper media site. So I need things like multiple content layouts, featured content, podcasts, videos, a membership sign-up page, courses coming soon, newsletter sign. Like I need all these things. I don't need the theme to do the function, but what I would pay for is a theme, and I've said this to Mike a million times with like Ollie, to support, like pick a handful of major plugins like Lifter LMS, like Gravity Forms, like Woo, like whatever, and think of those styles and think about styling those pages for those particular products and charge me between $500 to $1,000 and I'm in. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe the business case isn't there for scale, but I don't know. I think there's something there for a theme author to build out a theme that works with these very popular plugins. And these plugin companies, as somebody who works at Gravity Forms, would love to partner with somebody like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, maybe the days of a $59 single site license is gone, and this is what we need to move towards, a more comprehensive, larger ticket priced theme that partners with other plugins to build something better for their customers. That's just my own pie in the sky.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on that. I mean, number one, obviously I've been going to Mike about Ollie and Woo compatibility pretty regularly because I've been using it on demo Woo sites to try to figure it out. And he always says to me, it's not worth it. I don't want to touch it, because it's complicated. There's a lot of templates, a lot of layouts. And then, a lot of times, even inside WooCommerce, every problem you have is our problem. It could be your hosting company. No, it's WooCommerce broke this, or the theme did something, or a plugin extension. No, WooCommerce broke. That's because that's just the name that they're attached to. And I can understand why if you're Mike and you're Ollie and you're telling people I have WooCommerce theme support, the minute anything visual is off, he's going to be their support person.
Sure.
So I understand that. And also, I will say, I've had two experiences with this. Number one is I used to be the maintainer of a large open source theme called Understrap. I don't know if you know this one, but it was very popular for a long time. Yep. It was Bootstrap mixed with, very classic old school WordPress. And we had WooCommerce templates, and every, few months they'd update their templates. We'd have to go through and do all the testing and push those into the parent theme and then all the stuff. And it was really hard because, they want to add some functionality to their templates. We have to make sure that works. Then every developer who's changed it in some way now has to make sure it works. And it's hard. And now inside WooCommerce, we've been working really hard on a block theme that's tailored to WooCommerce and to a lot of the blocks that are, a lot of the screens that used to be short codes. Now they're all block based. And it's the same exact problem, which is, well, how do we give you a template that's in blocks and now you have complete freedom to change it, but now you've changed it and we want to add a new feature? What do? Break your site and give you the new feature? Don't give you the new feature, you never find out about it. Try to put it where we think in your blocks it makes the most sense, So every time you give that extra freedom, it just makes everything harder in the future because now every time we want to do something new, we have to not break your site, which is the number one thing that WordPress cannot do. It cannot break somebody's production site, no matter what version they're on, that sort of thing. So I think these are just like really hard problems to solve. I think the block editor has made some improvements, and I think people should compare it to what it was like in the classic theme era. And I think it's easy for a lot of people nowadays that have come into WordPress through page builders. And to them, it's like, well, I've been paying Elementor, $500 a year, and they solve all these problems for me. And now I want to not pay them, but I still want all these problems solved for me.
Right.
But they've never been around when we used to have to do all this stuff by hand and what that felt like. And so it's definitely easy to show up towards the end and say like, oh, you did it wrong for 20 years. Here's the right way to do it, because you have all the lessons we all learned the hard way. But in 10 years, you'll be that person too. And everybody will see what you did and say like, I can't believe you did it this way. Why didn't you know about this and that? And it's just a cycle. It's open source.
Yeah. And that's to toe the line from Kevin a little bit is like, which I also agree with, is how much time do we have left? How much time do we have left? Because anybody, like people can come to me like Kevin with their etch and their Elementor thing, and even the concerns like we talk about with Gravity Forms is how much longer do websites and WordPress exist like they are today? And we got to make a move. Right? We have to make a move, and we being like WordPress and the core contributors and the innovators behind the software, I am not that person. I am certainly here to provide feedback and to hold and prop up the successes of WordPress and like the use cases of WordPress. But I want to see it survive. So like how much longer? Obviously, we're not going to answer that on this episode, but how much time is left? And I think the good that comes out of these debates, whether you agree with Kevin or not, or like his approach or not, is hopefully it spurs some innovation to happen faster. And hopefully some of this stuff trickles into the core software of WordPress because it is needed. It is needed to survive in the future against all of the competition and, of course, things like AI. AI, in fact, might be a perfect use case, and it's actually given me an idea, unless it's too far-fetched, is, if I transition that Ollie block to Brian Gardner's block, and I lose all that styling, could AI solve that? Like, is that an opportunity right there for AI to evaluate the styling from the old theme and then see the styling on the new theme and go, boom, let me apply the styling. And maybe it doesn't get it right, but if it's 90%, there's a few other things I need to adjust. Maybe. Like, hey, there's a good use case for AI. But anyway, I also urge that something has to happen for sure if we want to keep thriving, as I like to keep repeating that phrase.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with your first point, which is that I'm always kind of glad when Kevin brings these conversations up. We'll have situations like working at Woo, we'll have situations where people in the community will kind of be a little aggressive, because I don't know if you know this, but people in open source can be a little mean to you, especially when you work at a big company. But a lot of times you see that and you're like, I don't really agree with your tone, but your substance is true, and I want more people to vocalize these things because it helps, because like I said, I probably agree with, more than half of what Kevin's laying out. I think that those are definite places to make some wins. But then, like you said, there's just this thing of AI sitting over your shoulder where you kind of feel like, are we pushing deck chairs around on the Titanic, worried about, user interface problems that honestly might not be problems in the future? The last time we talked, I looked it up, was January when we did this podcast before. I think that was the last time we talked about AI and its progress. And so I feel like this is a good opportunity to check back in and see, because I think that was when you had made the Pulse WP, right? Probably site, and you were burning tokens and stuff.
I'm
in
still
the last
burning
6
tokens,
months.
Brian.
I didn't understand what people meant when they talked about this, and then I tried Claude Code with an AI with an API key, and it shows you your API key $ just dropping and dropping, and so I'm here for advice because I'm starting to get into UI building with AI. Like I've used it for actual code pretty heavily since even like the Copilot days, and I'm enjoying it all. I'm trying to do that next thing, which is I'm going to build my own micro SaaS app for myself to solve my own use case and blah, blah, blah. Not going very well. Have you seen improvements since January, or do you feel like the tools are the same way they were 6 months ago?
So I have seen improvements with certainly Claude Code has done some tremendous things. And by tremendous things, as a non-developer, now full ownership on that vibe coder title, Claude Code gets things right 90% of the time on the first prompt. And if there are errors that creep up, it fixes them with a follow-up prompt. For example, when I started everything, dating back to January, a lot of the projects that I start, and I still kind of do this today, is I start with Bolt. And I start with Bolt simply because it's just in the web browser. I don't need to set it up locally. Just throw it in the web browser. It's fast, and it allows me to build that like really, really early stage idea. And where I still haven't seen AI win, again, non-developer, let's remember that, improve, is front-end design. No matter what I try, some people say, make sure you tell it to use the most, cutting edge version of Tailwind. And, I tried Sketch by Google and all this other stuff. And it's just vanilla Tailwind CSS styling. And that really has me thinking critically. It's like, why isn't front end design? Like, if AI is so powerful, why can't it come up with, give me 12 iterations of this screen that I'm trying to create with this app? Give me 12 iterations with, this kind of look and feel. And it can't do it. And I'm just sitting back going, why can it do all this other really complex coding stuff, but not this front end design? Not to say it's not complex, but why couldn't it just give me something else? So it certainly hasn't won there yet. Spend some time in Bolt, and then Pulse went to Replit, because at the time I was just like, I want an all-encompassing environment. Has Replit improved since January? Yes. Not as much as I've accomplished with Claude Code in other projects. Replit will still, from time to time, you'll ask it to do something, and it will just rewrite a whole thing on your app, like still today, no matter what you try to do. And that's the gap that I've seen really close in the last month or so that I've been spending a lot more time in Claude Code, is I don't ever fall into that death cycle of vibe coding where it's like, what happened? Let's revert. Let's go back. No, you didn't do this right. And again, I'm just speaking naturally. I'm not doing any tricks. Maybe I should, but it's just when I run into an issue in Replit, it takes me longer to get myself out of that hole than I ever land in with Claude Code on some like other standalone projects that I've been working on. So that's a long way of getting to, like, Claude Code has been really great. As a vibe coder, I'm less worried about taking on these projects, and I feel more confident building it out on my local machine, deploying it to Netlify, using Supabase as a backend. I feel more confident using Claude Code. And the reason why I had gone with Replit was because I didn't have that confidence. Like, I felt like I had an emergency switch I could hit with Replit, and it would take time and tokens and money to dig myself out of some big feature. But now I feel more confident with Claude Code. And I plan on actually pulling Pulse off of Replit and seeing what it can do if I come in on the back end with Claude Code and try to enhance it. So yes, from month 1 to month 7.5, I've seen definitely some improvements for the vibe coder like myself.
Okay. I mean, that's interesting because it does feel like, maybe not the last 6 months, but the last 3 months for sure, models have kind of stalled a little bit. It feels like there was gains, and now we've hit a bit of a plateau. And it's a plateau that, is still miles above. Like I said, Cursor for me is the one I'll go to the most. My wife sells some stuff, and I thought I'll set up a Woo store to kind of get a chance to play with it a bit, and I wanted to make some custom post type stuff to help her manage some stuff and everything. And I open up Cursor in a local environment, and I tell it what I want, and it's great. I don't have to do anything. I give it the WordPress kind of React component library, so it looks all pretty good. It still wants to keep throwing CSS at it and like hand styling everything, and I keep just saying like, nope, there's a component library, just use it, and it's pretty good. I wanted to do the other side of it, which I think people do on like Replit or Bolt, which is not, I'm going to just hack a little feature on WordPress, make a little plugin or something, but I'm going to make something from scratch. And the concept I had was like, I am unhappy with all the workout apps that I've gone through, and I know what I want to do, and all I want is like that timer that's like, do this movement for this much time, rest for this much time. Like I just want the timer and the rounds counting done for me, maybe track the weights or something like that. That's all I want. And I thought that seemed like the perfect option. And I've been building it, and it's exactly what you described, which is I ask for one tiny feature, and then suddenly there's entire screen of things I didn't ask for. This other feature got removed. This other thing's not working. It all looks ugly, super ugly. I have to go in manually and just like get rid of like it keeps adding borders to like everything. Everything is just like this. Yeah. Like it looks like 1990s software. It's wild. And I'm like hitting that point where I go, this has to be me. Like, should I be, because I used to like experimenting in the code, and it's like, I have an idea I don't really know. I'll build it and I'll flesh it out and I'll keep iterating on it and stuff. But what I'm finding with this is like, if you don't have a clear idea of what you're asking for, like it's going to go really far down a road you didn't want to. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong that I can't get it to just do the one little thing I asked for and stop?
Yeah. I've noticed, so one of the like little hacks I have with Bolt is I've actually found Bolt to do halfway decent UI and gives me the best variation of ideas. So like if I asked it in 6 different prompt windows to make me, like I've been working on this content calendar app, and if I asked it to just draw a calendar in the middle of the screen, and like that's where I want to start, because that's like the most common block of UI that people are going to work with. That's how I started with Bolt. Was I forget what the prompts were, but it's just like come up with a modern looking, clean, minimalistic, Notion like calendar view, blah blah blah, like do this thing 6 times in Bolt is fast and efficient, just not for Mother Earth, but fast and efficient in a browser. And then it gave me the best gap in between like all 6 variants. And then I would continue on the variant that I liked and to expand upon that idea a little bit more. And then once I get to a point where I'm satisfied with how it's working, how I look and feel, then I pull it down locally. I still use Cursor, but largely just for the file management, ease of file management, to just see the directory I'm in and all the files. And then I just load up Claude code there. Bolt makes it easy to deploy to Netlify and to start with Supabase, so that's why I start there. It kind of just lets me quickly integrate the 2 primary keys, which are the hosting and the database, and then I'll pull that down and do the rest locally when I think I'm ready to like continue with this idea. But still, from there, Claude Code isn't really enhancing the UI for me. What I do like what Claude Code does versus Replit is planning. Even though there's like a planning feature for Replit, Claude Code does really well at planning and outlining like what tasks it's going to complete, and allows you to interface with that plan more effectively. And 2, like it'll draw me in the command line like how it might approach doing a navigation item. Like if I'm asking it to show me, like I'm working on user management, and I was just like, hey, come up with an idea that's going to be a great way to display the users, and like the edit icon, the delete button, like show me how you might like lay this out. And it'll actually draw it out on the command line, not ASCII art, but it's just like, it's using like the equal sign to build the navigation. So it's like helping you visualize that in the command line. And I'm like, dude, this is great. You know? So anyway, the efficiencies there with Claude Code, I'm definitely seeing over Replit these days.
Yeah, I've tried Claude Code because I'll use Cursor, and I never really seem to hit limits with it. I don't know if I use it enough, but I think I have the $20 a month or whatever plan. It seems to be fine. I don't know if it's slow or fast or I'm on a rate limit or anything, but generally it does what I want it to do well enough. And when I've tried Claude Code, I've gotten into these cycles where I just see the dollar signs disappearing and you're right, we fixed it. This time it'll work. And to be fair, I think I was asking for something a little complicated, which is timer based. And that's not easy for any developer when you want to have a timer that's going and it changes the state and all this sort of stuff and everything. But I just keep fighting it. And what made me want to ask you is because we were talking about this, because I think at some point we're going to branch past the hobbyist vibe coder DIYer. I think right now people say we're in the command line phase where all the best tools are in the really command lines and chats, and you have to be someone like you who, even if you're not a developer, you kind of understand technology a lot better than the average person and you're tech forward. But fast forward a few years, you were imagining an idea like my iPhone can generate apps for me and sort of stuff like that. Do you think the current trajectory is leading to that still after where we've been and where we're going, or does it feel like we're kind of at this wall a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm just theory crafting with this stuff, and I'm trying to think of a world where coding apps is as, well, to be quite fair, is as ubiquitous as building a WordPress website. You know, in the bubble that you and I live in, we all know that there are people that can just waltz into the room and be like, I sold a site for $500, you know, and they're like, I'm a web developer. Cool. Fine. And that's absolutely how a lot of people start. It's how I started. So there's nothing wrong with it. But what I'm thinking is what's that next step? How civilization changing is AI? And if it is, then the next step is to empower people to do things that only developers and that white collar, more educated, affluent person has been doing for the last 20 years on the internet or 30 years on the internet. If YouTube made the common person a plumber because they watched a bunch of tutorials and all of a sudden now they're fixing their leaky faucet or running plumbing throughout their house, will these companies like Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, and Apple empower people to that same degree, and in fact even more instantaneously? If you look at Replit today, one of the improvements that they've done is, as you're building something, you have an inspect button like you have in Chrome tools or your browser tools. You can click on an element, and in the agent window, it'll give you a Gutenberg block of change the font type, change the padding. It'll give you all of those things so that the common person doesn't have to think about CSS, margins, padding, font. It's a little UI, right? It's running Gutenberg or Elementor inside your AI prompt. And I see that as that next step of, dumbing down the software building process. So my theory with Apple, getting to Apple is, and again, this is just a theory, is they have Swift. I've never developed in it, so I have no idea how it's done. But I think if Apple were to be like, hey, we've got this AI thing, you can create anything you can imagine as an app. Well, maybe they'll put up some guardrails on an iPhone to say, imagine your own to-do app. Imagine your own gallery app. Imagine your own social sharing app. And there'll be guardrails to this stuff, just like there's a lawyer theme, a restaurant theme, a creative theme for WordPress, where the average person might just go, that's pretty cool. I can make my own exercise app, right? That's Apple Fitness. It ties into that whole ecosystem. And maybe you can just create some kind of software, like big Lego blocks that you can't go under the hood and adjust. So I think that's where, Apple would go if they were to ever unlock an AI coding platform of their own, right? Super, super dumbed down version of a Replit. right? Because that's the Apple way, right? Is
Yeah.
like, here's this super basic way that the masses can use.
Yeah.
Right. So when I bring this up and like the real hardcore developers like, that's never going to happen. Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's not, but that's like the Apple MO is like, here's a super dumbed down version, notes, to do that. That's what they do. And I could see a world where Apple gives that kind of creative power to somebody and even say things like, never have to search for an app in our app store. Hell, maybe even sell your app in the app store. Could be a thing, right? So I think that could still happen in my outlook.
Yeah, I kind of go back and forth because I do think, like, on the one hand, you're right, Apple's great at these really, like, simplified mass appeal experiences that, if you're a power user, you can step up to the next thing. But if you're not, it's, like I think of their camera app or something like that where
Sure,
you're not a professional photographer, but, man, your pictures are looking pretty good, thanks to your Apple iPhone camera. And then on the flip side, obviously Apple's AI implementations have not been great so far, but it's also just like, where are we going to, how far are we from getting there? And I think one of the spots that I wanted to hear your thoughts on is, well, one, I think that a lot of these tools give you the blank canvas to make something with AI. And I think people get a lot of really good stuff out of that. Open up ChatGPT, nothing's there. Now I have a whole research report written for me. And that's amazing and that's great. And that's where it's really powerful. On the flip side, so much of the world is dealing with legacy software. So when you look at AIs, when it's integrated in these other tools, it's kind of not that great. Like AI, Gemini is great, blank page. Gemini in Google Docs kind of sucks. Like Copilot is great in some situations. If you ever used it in Office, it's not great. Yet those are the places where we need it the most, right? I mean, I can spin up cool new ideas every week. A lot of people are doing it. Where are those ideas? Everybody's vibe coding these things. I don't see any of them, right? I see a lot of people talking about what they're doing, but you're not seeing these things become long-lasting tools. On the flip side, I want to make improvements to existing stuff that is already part of my workflow. I think that's going to be really important, and it's just a harder problem to solve, and I think it needs to be solved. And I think that's the thing WordPress is dealing with right now, because there's 10 different WordPress start your site with AI tools out there. But where's the take your existing site and make it better with AI tools? Like, those, I don't see those yet.
I mean, I want to see my insurance prices go down. I want to see like legal contracts get a lot more, evaluated. Like that's what I'm doing now all the time. Just a side note, like I bought a new robot vacuum during Prime Day, and it's got like a freaking camera on it, voice activation, all this stuff. But you have to agree to the user agreement, and I just copy paste. Threw it into, I think I just did Grok at the time, and just said, evaluate this for me and tell me where I should be concerned as a consumer for my privacy. And it just like gave me all these things that this agreement has in it. Like it's going to store your images of your house indefinitely. It doesn't tell you that. And I'm like, okay, I'm not activating this. Right. So I'm like, those are the real wins that I want to see with AI, is like really improving our life offline. But the thing I keep going back to with a lot of this stuff is I can get apps off the ground, but as of halfway through July 2025, you still, to your point, like you still have to be able to get that business side of it. If you were like to sell an app, like you still have to do all that execution stuff. And I haven't seen anyone solve anything major. Like I haven't seen anybody take a vibe. As much as I watch these YouTube videos, I haven't seen anyone really succeed on these $10,000 a day apps that you're getting hyped on Twitter and YouTube. I'm running an experiment now because, you've challenged me many months ago, like, let me know when you earn $1. I did earn $1. I did let you know that somebody donated $5 to the podcast thing that I did. But I am running an experiment now. Like, can I build this app and build the marketing side of it with a WordPress website and build a business case for it and then just sell it? Like, that's the challenge I have that I'm running for myself right now, is like, can I build this thing to a functional app that somebody could say, I can run with that. I'll run with it. You've built it all for me, including the marketing side of it and the business case. I'll run with it the rest of the way. I'll just buy it off of you for X amount of dollars. That's the current experiment that I'm running right now. But yeah, like these apps still, like native LLM apps. I saw Claude today say that now it'll integrate with even more services, Notion, Google Docs, like all this stuff. But how is that integrating into my workflow yet? It's not.
Yeah.
It's
There's so many situations where no matter what options are available, I copy and paste and I go to whatever ChatGPT or Gemini, whatever one is closest at hand, and just paste it in there and tell it to do what I want. And you think that would have been a problem solved a while ago, but I feel like it's part of my job in the role of like working in the tech world, just like you, like I have to put in the time to learn this stuff. Like I think if you're in our industry and you're not, I don't know what you're doing. You should be learning this stuff. That said, if I were a normal person, there's absolutely no way I would be doing this. I'd just pay $20 a month to the Apple Fitness app and move on with my life and not dedicate, whatever, probably 3 hours, 4 hours so far to not have a functional app. I have to imagine we're going to get there at some point in the future, but
well, I mean, if you took my if you took my Apple theory, because I actually had this debate with Zemansky about this. If you took my Apple theory and applied it to OpenAI or Claude or Anthropic, like they would have to become, again, to dumb down the user experience and to just onboard people faster. Like if software is to be disrupted as much as like some of the people say, like you should be able to just create the app on ChatGPT and it's hosted.
Yeah.
Right through ChatGPT. So they'd have to go buy like Vercel, Netlify, or just freaking build their own infrastructure that hosts it, right? And it would have to be, I've got my ChatGPT $20 a month bill, and by the way, it gets me 5 apps that it'll host or whatever. But like, it won't be disrupted if the current workflow is you can create anything on ChatGPT, and then somebody goes and does it, and they go, okay, now it's just like WordPress. Like, now what do I do with it? Oh, you got to go find a host. You got to go find a back end. You got to do this. You got to do that. Like, it just has to be effortless. Like, just host it. And they kind of have that with Claude artifacts, and I think maybe ChatGPT has something where you can share like that visualization, but it's certainly not a full-fledged app. So that's how they would have to solve that for you to be like, well, I got my ChatGPT $20 a month, and I got some apps with it. That's that.
If you, like, it's funny that you say that about the hosting piece and stuff, because we just had a public community call today with WooCommerce, and you have one person saying, you need to make it easier for me to just get it hosted and I don't want to think about hosting. I want that fast SaaS. And then you have another person saying, don't you even talk to me about hosting. You're open source and I want to host it where I want it. And I don't even want your, and it's these two different sides of, our wonderful community. And I see both sides of it and have my own opinions. We have our own opinions internally. I think they're both valid points, but I think solving that sort of like ease of use thing. But to bring it back to WordPress, which I think has traditionally not done a great job at ease of use and onboarding and stuff, it's always been a roll up your sleeves and get it running type of a solution. And I think some hosting companies, sort of solve that. But for the core product or the core, open source part of it, if you were like head of WordPress, you're looking at AI, you're seeing where things are going, all that sort of stuff, and you had keys to the kingdom reference. What would you be, I'll put it in the show notes, what would you be doing? Where would your focus be now that we're a good few years into this, and I think we're starting to see where things are going? What would you be doing for WordPress if you were in charge of that AI team?
Ooh, that's a good one. It would certainly, on the essence of like onboarding users to WordPress, it would be, my core mindset would still be around develop anything with WordPress. I looked at the .com AI tool a few months ago or whatever it was. But like, how can we start from scratch to get people on board with building for WordPress? Let me go back to the Apple thing for just a second. Like, I think that if they had some kind of AI app building tool, it would be a great way to onboard the full experience to Swift, right? And to become Apple developers, right? And build more apps and buy more Mac software. I said the same thing about WordPress and Tumblr. Man, wouldn't it be great if Tumblr was powered by WordPress and everybody had a mini WordPress site under the hood of Tumblr, and then when they were ready to upgrade themselves, they could get a full-fledged WordPress site by just moving things over. And I think one of the things that made WordPress great was being able to build with it and learn with it. And I would keep that thread with AI. So give me an AI sandbox to build my WordPress anything with WordPress blocks and code and, whatever, theories, and start educating and being able to build WordPress sites that way. And then starting with the playground, right? I can start with the playground, I can talk to AI, I can build these things, and then I can launch this project into any hosting provider that I want. Sure. Give me a starred pressable account because it's an automatic property, no problem. But then allow me to download it just like I can do with Bolt, and really start, leaning on you can build anything with WordPress with AI. From there, I would have to check myself on understanding, because one of the concerns I have is then what do you do after that? If you were to take that site and move it somewhere else, how do you extend AI into the WordPress experience? I think it's easy to say, let's have a little option that said, here's your OpenAI key, and plop it in. Then you're just favoring OpenAI as the one AI system that you'd integrate to. So I would have to think longer and harder about how you continue with AI with WordPress. But I want to see a win for developing with Word as easy as I can do it with Replit, with freaking JavaScript and Tailwind. I want to be able to do that with a core WordPress theme and Gutenberg blocks. And in the future, like a decoupled environment, like something that's like I can just build a user registration system with WordPress. I can build a WordPress with just posts, no pages. I want to build my own WordPress thing, in the future, thanks to AI.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. I think obviously you stumble on the hardest part, which is the open source project can't actually have AI in it,
Right.
And
yeah.
And I do think it would be amazing if the AI project had not even put your API key, but one click opens your ChatGPT account, like a sign in with Facebook, but sign in with OpenAI type of thing. I think they could do that. I don't think that's a hard problem to solve. I think the other flip side of it is that I think we're at that turning point where AI is going to start, the screws are going to have to start getting turned on people, on the heavy AI users. I think we're going to have to start seeing the prices catch up with the features. And I think that's going to be an avenue where a lot of people are going to want to, in the same way that, set up your Stripe integration and the transaction person gets a little cut of every piece. I think we're going to start seeing that with AI, where it's oh, don't authenticate through AI, authenticate through GoDaddy's AI, which is just OpenAI, but now we're getting a little piece of it and we're able to kind of rate it and stuff. So I think that's all going to be, it's going to be another battleground for all of that. But I definitely agree with you. And I'm curious to see what goes next and what comes out. And, I have my own thought. I keep wanting to write a thing of here's what I think should be the AI priorities in WordPress. And I just keep getting distracted. But I think it's something like you said, quick and easy wins,
Yeah. I think one of the things about, and I think I've said this to you before, and since you're a developer, you can tell me, when you look at, let's say, Supabase, Replit, because I think you were talking about the auth system on Twitter the other day, user authentication. That is when you look at what holds a customer from a business side of it. If you build an app on Replit and it becomes successful, let's say, if you're a commercial endeavor and people are registering, signing up, using the Replit auth system, that part of it, you might be using open source JavaScript tools, Tailwind, all this stuff to build your app, but that auth system is proprietary to Replit. No different than Supabase. It's a proprietary auth system, and it's solving those more complicated components of an app. AWS has theirs, so on and so forth. So that's the cornerstone. I think WordPress has user authentication, right? So if WordPress moved to that Replit-esque experience, something that we've all debated for a long time, is it an app? Is it a website builder? Well, I think with the help of AI, maybe it can be, loosely speaking, a Replit alternative, if all things were equal. And now my auth system and my database and the way that I store content and retrieve content and display content is all done in an open source WordPress way. To me, that's I'm there for that. I will build my app in WordPress versus Replit if that were the case. And I think you'd have to do that in order to make WordPress and open source, survive. Otherwise, people just go, well, this other thing is easier, and it just builds it. So I'm just going to use it.
I thought deeply about doing this workout timer on my WordPress site. I was like, it would, like I said, like I have the database, I have the REST APIs, I have all this stuff. I build this, like this would be in my wheelhouse and everything. And I ultimately was like, no, I want to try these other things, see what other people are experiencing. But I kind of agree with you. It just feels like there's a huge opportunity to say, we already have this thing. It's already being hosted somewhere. You're already paying for it. You're already like, now you can start building those tools in here, and it's there, and it leverages all that stuff. But I think it's a long road from here to there. But hopefully we'll see it.
One point I do want to make, and I'm kind of upset that it's an hour in that I'm making this point, but when I try to build plugins for WordPress with AI, it is not as satisfying as like building a React/Tailwind app, because at least the way that I see it is the changes and the modifications and the features that I'm making are happening instantly because of that tech. Like I'm looking at, like I have half my window as my browser, I have the other half as Claude Code, and literally as it's doing it, I'm seeing those changes applying because of the nature of whatever, React, JavaScript, Tailwind, all these technologies. And when I do it in WordPress, it is a freaking struggle to be like, I got to update the plugin, go to the page, hit refresh. Okay, there's the change. Did it work? Nope. Go back. And it is just not as exciting. And that is my worry for other idiots like me that come into the space who are like, I want to build my own thing. And oh my God, JavaScript and React is just, I can just see it happening, man. It's just right there. WordPress, I got to make a plugin. I got to refresh the page. I got to find it over here. I got to go to the ad. It's just not as satisfying. Can we make it more satisfying? Is the long-term goal for me anyway, or what I would promote.
No. I fully agree with you. There is, but I think that's been a problem that's always just been a problem with WordPress.
Sure.
It's just that thing of like, and I also think like you're generally solving weirder problems with WordPress. You're almost always solving two UIs at once. Like when you build a block, there's like, how does it look on the front end of my site? How does it look when I interact with it? And that's almost everything in WordPress is like that. How does the settings page look? How does it change the behavior on the front end of my site? And it just adds so much complexity. Whereas like my workout app is just one screen. Everybody sees the same screen, that sort of thing. So I think some of it is a bit of like the different types of problems that you're solving. And some of it is the fact that it's just this PHP site that you just have to reload every page constantly and all that stuff. But I think that at the end of the day, I think that you're right. And to me, when I think of the WordPress site editor, and when I go into Gutenberg and I have that black sidebar on the side and I see my site inside the little white bubble, it's like, to me, I'm like, we're there. Like, we're so close to what Replit looks like, what Bolt looks like, what every other interface looks like. Like, here's my site. Here's a little area. Let me start talking to it. It just feels like it's right there. And then maybe let me look at the code and give me some sort of like sandboxed code place where I can do it. But yeah, there's a lot of ground to cover, to even get there. And it has to kind of start with a really defined vision and a really defined audience of like, well, we can't make it for everybody, but like, what's the one problem we could make much easier to solve with AI? We'll see.
Would you pay $20 a month to have a collection of what I call utility apps, like if you had the desire to make more utility apps? Like I have an app for podcastdownloader.cc. Oftentimes I need to just quickly search and download a podcast episode for various reasons. I have that. I have WPAPIExplorer.cc or .com. I have a new app that I just made, which I haven't put on a URL yet, which is just an audio recorder. Sometimes I just need to quickly record audio and have some notes next to it. So I have like a little note section that I can just quickly look at the notes and as I'm recording the audio, and then I just download the audio. Like, I don't want to boot up Descript. I don't want to boot up Descript, have it translate, do all that stuff, save it as a project, blah, blah, blah. I just need to quickly create some audio and then upload it to Transistor. Like, I have a range of utility apps that I've built that I actually keep using.
But wait, that last one, QuickTime doesn't do that for you? Just like
no
QuickTime, new audio recording? What's wrong with that?
Nope.
What?
No.
Why not QuickTime? I'm curious. It's built into your Mac.
No, because then it would have to be QuickTime, and then also like like if I've been recording episodes for a Matt Report recently, right? And these are usually just like off the cuff thoughts. But now it'd be QuickTime, and then I have to open up a notes app, type out. No, if I just go to yet to be revealed URL, I just have it right there, and I can just create my notes for that episode and just hit record.
Yeah.
It's even faster than having to open up QuickTime, and then when I exit that note app, do you want to save this? No. Like, I don't want to save it. I just want to get it out of here, right? So these are utility apps that improve my workflow. So the question is, like, would you pay that $20 a month to have, like, if you had more utility apps like that exercise app? Is it worth it?
I think that's the paradigm shift that we're hitting is like I don't really like the way, like the fitness app thing. Like there's I'm sure I could find one that's exactly 99% of what I want and pay $20 a month for it. I'm sure that I could, but it's now hit the point where it feels easier to just make it exactly what I want. And I would pay $20 a month to be able to do that with every single little idea that I have. I think the flip side is like it has to be faster from idea to like final, and I think it's still hours of time to do it, and we have to get to that place where it's not hours, where it's much faster to get from an idea. Because if I was just making another to-do list app that is exactly like the to-do list app that's built into my phone, that's not gonna. There's not really a market for that. But when I want that weird thing, I want that to-do list app that does that one weird thing. That's still the place where it's like, if we can get there, I think that'll be pretty awesome. But I don't think we're there yet.
Fair enough.
All right, those were kind of my big. I mean, I had so many other big questions, but those are sort of my big ones. I think we got to do this sooner than 6 months before the next time that we talk.
Always down to talk about this stuff.
Where should people go? Which micro SaaS are you promoting today?
God, you can always find me at my day job at gravityforms.com, and the WPminute.com is where I spend most of my extra free time.
Awesome. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Brian.
Webmasters is hosted by me, Brian Coords. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to like and subscribe, leave us a review, or share this episode. For more, visit webmasters.fm. Until next time.